The Seoul skyline didn't comfort Min-ho anymore. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, whiskey in hand, watching the city pulse with Friday night energy 43 floors below. The glass was cold against his forehead. Behind him, his assistant's voice droned through the speaker about tomorrow's merger, the stock implications, the board's approval ratings, words that once made his blood sing now just existed. "Sir. Are you still there?" Min-ho blinked. "Reschedule the morning session. I have a personal matter." "The engagement party preparation?" "Yes." The word tasted like ash. He ended the call and returned to the window. His reflection stared back, sharp suit, sharper cheekbones, eyes that had forgotten how to soften. At 38, Park Min-ho had conquered Korean tech, his company's valuation crossing into billions with the kind of trajectory that made Forbes take notice. His engagement to Yuna, daughter of a semiconductor magnate, made perfect sense. Strategic. Clean. Expected. So why did his chest feel like a cavern? The ring. He still needed to buy the ring. Min-ho checked his watch, 7:47 p.m. Most jewelers would be closing, but he'd received a recommendation for a boutique in Cheongdam-dong that catered to clients who valued discretion. He grabbed his keys, ignoring the 3 texts from Yuna about floral arrangements. The elevator descended in silence, just him and the faint hum of machinery, and he wondered when everything had become so quiet. Across the city, Lee Ji-woo locked the front door of Eternal Moments and flipped the sign to closed. Her feet ached in her heels, beautiful, impractical things she wore because they made her feel like she'd arrived somewhere. The boutique smelled of leather and the white tea candles she burned to soften the sterile luxury of glass cases and polished marble. She'd built this place from nothing, and some days, that was enough. Tonight wasn't one of those days. Ji-woo moved through the showroom, straightening displays that didn't need straightening. The engagement rings gleamed under soft lighting, diamonds and sapphires, platinum and gold, each one a promise that someone, somewhere, believed would last forever. She'd designed many of them herself, pouring artistry into symbols of devotion while her own ring finger remained bare. 3 years since the divorce. 3 years of rebuilding. Her phone buzzed, a reminder about her sister's wedding next month. Ji-woo would smile through it, ignore the pitying glances, pretend she didn't feel like a cautionary tale. The woman who couldn't keep a billionaire. Never mind that she'd left him. Never mind that staying would have killed the parts of her that made life worth living. She was reaching for her coat when the knock came. Ji-woo froze. The boutique didn't take walk-ins after 7, and the frosted glass door revealed only a tall silhouette, backlit by streetlights. She should ignore it. Should call out that they were closed. Instead, she walked to the door. "We're closed," she said through the glass. "Appointments only. You can call Monday. I was told you make exceptions for serious buyers." That voice. Ji-woo's hand slipped on the lock. No. It couldn't be. 3 years, and Seoul was a city of 10 million people, the universe couldn't be this cruel, this ironic, this. She opened the door. Min-ho stood on her doorstep, and the world tilted. What would you do if you came face to face with the one who got away? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, I read every single one. For 3 heartbeats, neither of them moved. Min-ho's hand was still raised, as if to knock again, frozen midair like a photograph. His eyes, those dark, intense eyes that used to trace her face in the morning light, widened with recognition that hit like a physical blow. Ji-woo felt her carefully constructed composure crack down the middle. Ji-woo. Her name in his voice. She'd forgotten how he said it, with that slight catch on the second syllable, like it meant something. Mr. Park. She kept her tone professional, a shield made of ice and 3 years of practice. I'm afraid we're closed for the evening. I didn't know, he stopped, swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed beneath his perfectly knotted tie. I didn't know this was your store. Why would you? The words came out sharper than she intended. It's not like we keep in touch. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. In the distance, traffic hummed. Someone laughed on the street. Normal sounds in a moment that felt anything but. Minho lowered his hand. I need a ring. Of course he did. Jiwoo's stomach dropped somewhere around her knees, but she kept her face still as glass. Congratulations. I'm sure your fiancé will be thrilled. Something flickered across his face, guilt. Regret, but it vanished too quickly to name. May I come in? I was told your custom work is exceptional. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to claim a headache or a family emergency or anything that would let her escape this nightmare. But Jiwoo had built this business on her reputation, and more than that, she'd spent 3 years learning not to run from discomfort. She stepped aside. 5 minutes. I have an appointment. The lie sat bitter on her tongue, but he didn't challenge it. Minho entered her sanctuary, and Jiwoo hated how his presence seemed to fill the space, making her beautiful boutique feel suddenly small. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, his hair styled with that effortless precision that came from having people whose entire job was making him look perfect. He looked perfect. He looked like a stranger. You've done well for yourself, Minho said, his gaze sweeping the showroom. This is impressive. Thank you. Jiwoo moved behind the counter, needing a physical barrier between them. Her hands trembled as she pulled out the engagement ring portfolio. She clasped them together. Do you have a budget in mind? Or perhaps you know her style preferences? He stopped at the counter across from her. This close, she could see the faint shadows under his eyes, the new lines at the corners. I'm not sure what she'd like. You're not sure what your fiancé would like. Jiwoo couldn't keep the edge from her voice. That's an interesting foundation for a marriage. His jaw tightened. It's complicated. It always is with you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Minho's eyes met hers, and for a moment, just a moment, she saw past the billionaire CEO to the man she'd married at 25. The man who'd promised her the world and then got so busy building his empire that he forgot she was supposed to be part of it. Jiwoo. The rings, she interrupted, flipping open the portfolio with more force than necessary. I have several designs suitable for engagements. This platinum setting is classic, very popular with traditional families. The center stone would be your choice, though I recommend at least 2 carats for the proportions. Stop. She looked up. Minho was gripping the edge of the counter, his knuckles white. Please, he said quietly. Can we just acknowledge how insane this is? What's insane about it? Jiwoo kept her voice level. You need a ring. I sell rings. It's a simple transaction. There's nothing simple about this and you know it. What I know, she said, closing the portfolio with a soft snap, is that you're getting married. What I know is that you need an engagement ring. What I know is that we're 2 adults who used to be married and now we're not, and that's all there is to it. Is it? The question landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading out in all directions. Jiwoo forced herself to hold his gaze. Yes. It is. Now, do you want to see the rings or not? For a long moment, Minho didn't answer. He just looked at her with an expression she couldn't read, something between longing and loss, between regret and resignation. Then he straightened his shoulders, slipping back into the armor of his corporate persona. Show me what you have. Jiwoo pulled out 3 velvet trays, arranging them on the counter with practiced precision. Her hands had stopped shaking. She'd locked everything dangerous away in a box at the back of her mind, the way she'd learned to do in the year after the divorce when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. This design features a cushion-cut center stone with micropave on the band, she explained, pointing to a ring that caught the light like captured starlight. It's elegant but not ostentatious. Suitable for someone who values understated luxury. Minho barely glanced at it. What else? This one is more contemporary. An emerald cut with tapered baguettes. Very architectural. It makes a statement. And this? He pointed to the third tray. Ji-woo hesitated. The ring he'd indicated was her own design, a delicate setting that held the diamond in what looked like open hands, as if offering rather than possessing. She'd sketched it the night of her divorce, when she still believed love should feel like freedom instead of a cage. That's not what I'd recommend for you. Why not? Because it's meant for someone who understands that love is about letting go, not holding on. The words escaped before she could stop them. Someone who's learned that the tighter you grip, the faster things slip away. The air between them crackled with everything unsaid. Minho reached for the ring, his fingers brushing hers as he lifted it from the velvet. The contact lasted less than a second, but Ji-woo felt it like an electric shock. He held the ring up to the light, and she watched his face as he studied it. You made this, he said. Not a question. Yes. It's beautiful. His voice had gone rough. It's the most beautiful thing I've seen in 3 years. Ji-woo's throat tightened. Minho. Does she know? He turned to her abruptly, still holding the ring. Your fiancé. Does she know you're here? That's none of your business. You're right. It's not. He set the ring down carefully, reverently, as if it might shatter. But I'm asking anyway. Ji-woo crossed her arms, a defensive gesture she immediately regretted. What do you want me to say? That I spend my Friday nights designing rings for other people's happy endings? That I watch couples come in here, glowing with hope, and I smile and help them choose forever, and then I go home to an empty apartment and pretend I don't remember what it felt like to believe in forever? The confession ripped out of her like a wound opening. Minho's face went pale. Ji-woo, I'm sorry. I'm so. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't apologize. You don't get to walk in here after 3 years and apologize. You don't get to make this about guilt or redemption or whatever emotional crisis you're having. You're engaged. You're happy. You need a ring. So choose one, and let's be done with this. I'm not happy. The words fell into the space between them like stones into deep water. What? Ji-woo whispered. Minho laughed, but it was a broken sound. You asked if I'm happy. I'm not. I haven't been happy since the day you walked out of our apartment with a single suitcase and your grandmother's necklace. I built an empire. I tripled my net worth. I'm marrying exactly who everyone expects me to marry, and I wake up every morning feeling like I'm suffocating. Ji-woo's heart hammered against her ribs. Then why are you doing it? Because it makes sense. Because she fits into my life. Because she doesn't ask me to be anything other than what I already am. He dragged a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. Because she's not you, and maybe that's the point. Maybe if I marry someone I don't love the way I loved you, I won't destroy it. The confession hung in the air between them, raw and terrible and true. Minho. Ji-woo's voice cracked on his name. You can't say these things to me. Why not? Because I spent 3 years getting over you. The words burst out of her like a dam breaking. 3 years convincing myself I made the right choice. 3 years building a life that doesn't revolve around waiting for you to come home, doesn't measure my worth by whether you notice me, doesn't slowly kill me by inches because I'm lonely in my own marriage. I know. I know I did that to you. And now you're here, buying a ring for someone else, telling me you're not happy, and what am I supposed to do with that? Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. What do you want from me? Minho looked at her across the counter, across the impossible distance of 3 years and 1,000 regrets, and said the one thing she wasn't prepared for. I want to know if you still think about us. If you lie awake at night wondering what would have happened if I'd chosen differently. If you. He swallowed hard. If you ever wish you'd stayed. The question broke something open in Jiwoo's chest. She thought about lying. Thought about armor and self-protection and all the walls she'd built to survive. Instead, she told the truth. Every single day. The admission settled over them like snow, soft and suffocating. Minho closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. Then why did you leave? You know why. Tell me again. Make me understand. Jiwoo leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. The boutique felt too small, too warm, too full of memories she tried so hard to bury. Outside, Seoul hummed with Friday night life, couples heading to dinner, friends meeting for drinks, normal people living normal lives that didn't implode in jewelry stores. Do you remember our last anniversary? She asked quietly. Minho flinched. Jiwoo. I made reservations at that restaurant you loved. The one in Itaewon with the private rooms and the chef who trained in Paris. I bought a new dress, navy blue, because you always said I looked beautiful in navy. I took the afternoon off from the gallery where I was working, got my hair done, my nails. She studied her hands, simple and unadorned now. I waited at that restaurant for 3 hours. I had a meeting with investors from Singapore. I told you. You told me 3 days later, when you finally came home long enough to notice I'd stopped speaking to you. Jiwoo's voice remained calm, but the words cut. That was the moment I realized I could disappear and you wouldn't notice until it impacted your schedule. That's not fair. Isn't it? She finally met his eyes. Tell me, Minho. What was I doing the day you asked me to marry you? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Confusion flickered across his face, then something worse, realization. You don't know, Jiwoo said softly. You don't remember that I was curating my first solo exhibition. That I'd spent 6 months working toward that moment, that it was the biggest professional achievement of my life, and you proposed to me in the middle of the opening because you just closed a funding round and you were high on success and you wanted someone to share it with. I thought, Minho's voice cracked. I thought you'd be happy. I was. I loved you so much it physically hurt. But that should have been my night, Minho. That show could have launched my career as a curator. Instead, it became the night Park Minho proposed to the gallery girl. By the next morning, all anyone wanted to talk about was the ring, the wedding, who I was wearing. She wrapped her arms around herself. I disappeared into your shadow, and I let it happen because I thought love meant making yourself smaller so someone else could shine. The words hung between them like a bridge and a weapon. Minho moved around the counter, and Jiwoo's breath caught. He stopped 2 feet away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn throughout their marriage, cedar and something crisp that always reminded her of winter mornings. I didn't ask you to make yourself smaller, he said. You didn't have to ask. It just happened. Every business dinner where I smiled and played the perfect wife. Every trip you canceled because work came up. Every conversation that started with just 5 minutes and ended with you on your laptop for 3 hours. Jiwoo's voice softened. You didn't do it on purpose. That almost made it worse. You weren't cruel or dismissive. You just forgot I existed unless I was useful. Jiwoo. The day I left, do you know what I was doing? He shook his head, and she could see him bracing for impact. I was sitting in our apartment, that beautiful apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and artwork worth more than most people's cars, and I was trying to remember the last time you'd asked me about my day. Not my schedule. Not what I needed from you. Just how I was. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she didn't wipe it away. I couldn't remember, Minho. I sat there for 4 hours trying to remember, and I couldn't. And that's when I knew I had to leave, because if I stayed, would disappear completely. Minho reached for her, then stopped himself. His hand hung in the air between them, trembling. I would have changed. If you'd told me. I did tell you. Ji-woo's voice broke. I told you hundreds of times in hundreds of ways. I asked you to come to my gallery openings. I suggested we take a weekend trip. I left notes on your pillow when you came home too late to talk. I made your favorite meals and let them go cold because you were on conference calls in your study. She wiped her eyes, angry at herself for crying. I screamed it at you the night before I left, and you promised you'd do better, just like you'd promised 100 times before. But the next morning, you were gone before I woke up, and you didn't come home for 2 days. That was the Samsung deal. I told you how important. Everything was always important. The anger came then, hot and sharp. Everything except me. Except us. You built this incredible life, Min-ho, and you never thought to make room for me in it. I was an accessory. Beautiful furniture for a beautiful apartment. Someone to make you look good at charity galas. That's not true. But his voice wavered. No. Ji-woo grabbed her phone from behind the counter, scrolling back 3 years of photos. She found what she was looking for and turned it to face him. This is from our 2nd anniversary. Remember it? The photo showed Min-ho at a podium, receiving some award, Ji-woo standing behind him in a red dress, smiling. But her eyes were empty. I remember, he whispered. You gave a 20-minute speech about innovation and perseverance and the importance of dedication. You thanked your team, your investors, your mother. She pulled the phone back. You forgot to mention your wife. And I stood there, smiling, because I'd learned that's what I was supposed to do. Min-ho's face had gone ashen. Why didn't you leave sooner? The question surprised her. Ji-woo set down her phone, considering. Because I kept hoping you'd wake up. That you'd realize what we were losing. That you'd choose me. She smiled sadly. And because leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done. I loved you so much, Min-ho. Sometimes I think I loved you more than I loved myself, and that was the problem. I loved you too. I know you did. But you loved your ambition more. You loved the empire you were building, the deals you were closing, the version of yourself that was conquering the world. Ji-woo's voice gentled. And I couldn't compete with that. I was never going to be enough to make you stop and look around and realize that you were winning everything except the only game that mattered. Silence fell, heavy with the weight of everything they'd lost. Have you ever had to choose between love and ambition? Share your story in the comments. This community is a safe space. Min-ho sank onto the velvet bench near the window, his head in his hands. He looked defeated in a way she'd never seen him look, not when deals fell through, not when competitors came after him, not even when she'd handed him divorce papers. I think about that night, he said finally. The anniversary. You were wearing navy blue, like you said. You'd curled your hair. You looked. He swallowed hard. You looked so beautiful, and I was in Singapore arguing about valuation models with men who didn't matter. And when I got home and you wouldn't speak to me, I was angry. I thought you were being unreasonable. I thought you didn't understand the pressure I was under. I understood the pressure, Ji-woo said quietly. She moved to sit beside him, maintaining careful distance. What I didn't understand was why I always came last. You didn't come last. Then what came before me? He couldn't answer. They both knew why. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the boutique. Ji-woo watched a couple walk past, hand in hand, laughing at something only they understood. She felt a sharp pang of envy. After you left, Min-ho said suddenly, I threw myself into work even harder. Convinced myself I was better off alone. That relationships were distractions. He laughed bitterly. I worked 18-hour days. Closed deals in 3 continents. Doubled my company's value. And every night I came home to that empty apartment, and I'd see your coffee mug still in the cabinet, you forgot it when you packed, and I wanted to die. Ji-woo's breath hitched. Min-ho. I kept it. It's still there. Still in the same spot, second shelf on the left. Sometimes I... He stopped, shook his head. You must think I'm pathetic. I think you're human. She studied his profile in the dim light. I think we both made mistakes. I think we were too young and too stubborn and too scared to ask for what we needed. What did you need? The question was so simple, so earnest, that it broke her heart all over again. I needed you to see me, Ji-woo whispered. Not as your wife. Not as an extension of your success. Just, me. Ji-woo. The girl who loved art and terrible romantic comedies and Sunday mornings in bed with coffee and crossword puzzles. The person I was before I became Mrs. Park Min-ho. I did see you. No. You saw a beautiful woman who fit into your life. Who looked good in designer dresses and knew which fork to use at business dinners. Who didn't complain when you worked late or cancelled plans. She turned to face him fully. But did you know my favorite color had changed from blue to green? That I'd started taking pottery classes on Tuesdays? That I was terrified of thunderstorms but pretended not to be because you said fear was weakness? Min-ho's eyes widened. You took pottery classes? For 6 months. I was actually pretty good at it. Ji-woo smiled sadly. I stopped after the divorce. It reminded me too much of trying to build something beautiful with my hands while everything else was crumbling. I'm sorry. His voice broke on the words. Ji-woo, I'm so sorry. For all of it. For being blind and selfish and stupid. For making you feel invisible. For choosing everything except the only thing that mattered. I know you are. I know you didn't mean to hurt me. But intention doesn't erase impact. She reached out, surprising herself, and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers immediately, desperately. We destroyed something precious because we didn't know how to protect it. And now? Min-ho asked. What happens now? Ji-woo looked at their intertwined hands, her small, calloused from years of detailed jewelry work, his large and soft except for a single callus on his right index finger from endless typing. They fit together the way they always had, like puzzle pieces that were never meant to be separated. Now you choose a ring, she said gently. You marry someone who makes sense for your life. You try to be happy. And you? I do the same thing I've been doing. I build my business. I design beautiful things. I move forward. Alone. The word hung between them like a challenge. Maybe, Ji-woo said. Or maybe I find someone who sees me. Someone who chooses me first, not because I'm convenient or suitable, but because they can't imagine a life where I'm not in it. She squeezed his hand once, then let go. Someone who remembers my favorite color. Min-ho flinched as if she'd struck him. It's green now. You said green. That's right. Because of the jade pendant your grandmother left you. The one you wore every day. He closed his eyes, remembering. You said it reminded you that beautiful things could survive anything if they were strong enough. Ji-woo's throat tightened. You noticed. I noticed everything about you. I just. He opened his eyes, and they were bright with tears. I just didn't tell you. I didn't show you. I kept everything locked inside because I thought actions mattered more than words. I thought providing for you, building a life for us, succeeding, I thought that was enough. It wasn't enough because I needed you, not your success. I needed the man I fell in love with, not the one who disappeared into boardrooms and business trips. Ji-woo stood, needing distance. Do you even remember why you fell in love with me? Yes. The answer came immediately, fiercely. You were standing in that gallery, explaining a piece to an elderly couple, and you were so passionate about it that you were practically glowing. You made art come alive. You saw beauty in things other people overlooked. You laughed at my terrible jokes. You challenged me. You made me feel like I was more than just my company, more than just my achievements. His voice dropped to a whisper. You made me feel human. And then I got scared. Because you made me feel too much. Want too much. Need too much. Minho stood too, facing her across the narrow space. So I built walls. Threw myself into work. Convinced myself that success would fill the holes inside me. But it didn't. It never did. And by the time I realized that, you were gone. I couldn't save you from yourself, Minho. I tried. God, I tried so hard. But you have to want to change. I do want to change. Then why are you marrying Yuna? The question landed like a slap. Minho stepped back, and Ji-woo saw the truth written across his face. He didn't have an answer. Or worse, he did, and it wasn't one either of them wanted to hear. She's safe, he finally said. She doesn't ask for anything I can't give. She doesn't make me feel like I'm failing by being who I am. She doesn't love you. Ji-woo said it gently, but the words still cut. And you don't love her. You're settling for comfortable instead of risking real. What's wrong with comfortable? Nothing. If that's really what you want. Ji-woo moved back behind the counter, putting professional distance between them again. But you came here tonight looking for an engagement ring, and instead you spent an hour talking about us. So I don't think comfortable is what you want. I think it's what you think you deserve. Minho stared at her, and she could see him fighting with himself, the war between safety and risk, between what made sense and what made him feel alive. I hurt you, he said finally. Even if I changed, even if I did everything differently, I can't erase that. You left for good reasons. Why would you ever trust me again? I wouldn't. Not easily. Ji-woo pulled out the ring he'd been drawn to earlier, her design, the one about letting go. But maybe that's not the right question. What is? Maybe the question is, have you learned who you want to be? Not who everyone expects you to be, not who your shareholders need you to be, but who you actually are when you strip away the title and the money and the empire. She held up the ring, letting it catch the light. Because that's the only person worth building a life with. Someone who knows themselves well enough to know what they can't live without. And what if I can't live without you? The confession hung in the air between them, raw and terrible and true. Ji-woo set down the ring with trembling hands. Then you have a decision to make. Minho reached for the ring, his hand shaking. He held it up to the light the way he had before, but this time Ji-woo saw something different in his face. Not calculation. Not analysis. Just pure, unfiltered emotion. If I bought this ring, he said slowly, and I asked you to design one for me, a different one, meant for someone else, would you do it? Ji-woo's heart stuttered. What do you mean? Would you design a ring meant for the woman I should have married? He lowered the ring, his eyes locked on hers. The woman I should have chosen every single day, instead of choosing my pride and my ambition and my fear. Minho, don't. I'm calling off the engagement. The words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them back for weeks. I'm calling it off because you're right. Yuna deserves someone who loves her the way she deserves to be loved. She deserves someone who can't imagine life without her, not someone who's using her as a shield against his own failures. You can't make that decision because of one conversation. I'm not. He set the ring down carefully, then pulled out his phone. Before Ji-woo could process what was happening, he was making a call. Yuna. Yes, I know it's late. I need to talk to you. Minho, wait, Ji-woo reached for him, but he held up a hand. No, it can't wait until tomorrow. It's. He took a deep breath. It's about the engagement. I can't do this. I'm sorry. You're incredible, and you deserve so much better than someone who's marrying you for the wrong reasons. I'll explain everything, but I can't marry you. I understand, Minho said quietly. You have every right to be angry. I'll deal with the fallout. I'll make a statement. I'll make sure you're not blamed for any of this. A pause. No, there isn't someone else. There's just the truth. And the truth is that I'm not ready to be the partner you deserve. He ended the call and stood there, phone in hand, looking simultaneously terrified and relieved. What did you just do? Ji-woo whispered. Something I should have done months ago. Minho pocketed his phone. Something I should have done 3 years ago when you walked out and I let you go instead of fighting for you. This isn't about me. Isn't it? He moved closer, and Ji-woo's back hit the counter. You asked me what I can't live without. You asked me who I want to be. And the answer to both questions is the same thing I've been running from for 3 years. Which is, I can't live without you. And I want to be the man who deserves you. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Even if it takes me the rest of my life to become him. Ji-woo's eyes burned. You can't just walk back into my life and expect. I don't expect anything. Minho's hands clenched at his sides, like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. I know I have no right to ask for a second chance. I know I destroyed your trust, made you feel invisible, chose everything except you until it was too late. I know that. Then what are you doing? I'm telling you the truth. His eyes met hers, and she saw everything in them, regret and hope and fear and love, all tangled together. I'm telling you that for 3 years, I've built an empire and felt hollow. I've succeeded at everything except the only thing that mattered. I've dated other women and compared every one of them to you. I've lain awake at night remembering the way you'd curl against me in your sleep, the sound of your laugh, the feeling of coming home to someone who saw past the CEO to the man underneath. Minho. I'm telling you that I was a fool. That I took the best thing in my life and slowly destroyed it because I was too scared to be vulnerable, too proud to admit I needed you more than I needed success. A tear slid down his cheek, and he didn't wipe it away. I'm telling you that if you gave me another chance, not now, not until I've proven I've changed, but someday, I would spend every day showing you that you come first. That you're seen. That you're cherished. Ji-woo's breath came in short gasps. You don't know if you can keep that promise. You're right. I don't. He took a step back, giving her space. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to restructure my entire life, go to therapy, learn how to be present, learn how to show up, whatever it takes. Because the alternative is spending the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to fight for us. It's not about bravery. It's about being different people than we were before. I know. And maybe we're too different now. Maybe too much damage has been done. Maybe you've moved on in ways I can't understand. His voice cracked. But I had to tell you. I had to stand here in your beautiful store and tell you that you were right, about everything. And that I'm sorry. And that if there's even a fraction of a chance. Stop. Ji-woo held up a hand, tears streaming down her face. Just, stop. Minho went silent, and she could see him bracing for rejection, for the final door closing between them. Ji-woo wiped her eyes, trying to think through the chaos in her head. 3 years. She'd spent 3 years rebuilding herself, learning to be whole without him. 3 years convincing herself that she'd made the right choice, that leaving had been an act of self-preservation, not a mistake. And now he stood in her boutique, having just called off his engagement, offering her everything she'd begged for during their marriage, his attention, his vulnerability, his whole heart. Do you know what the worst part of divorce was? She asked quietly. Tell me. It wasn't the legal proceedings or splitting our belongings or telling our families. It was walking away from potential. She met his eyes. Because part of me always wondered if I'd given up too soon. If I'd stayed just a little longer, if I'd fought harder, if I'd... No. Minho's voice was fierce. You fought hard enough. You fought for years while I was too blind to see it. You left because staying would have killed you, and that is my fault, not yours. But I still wondered. I still lay awake thinking about the version of us that could have existed if things had been different. And now. Ji-woo looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the same man she'd fallen in love with, but also someone new. Someone who just risked everything to tell the truth. Someone who was standing in front of her trembling with vulnerability instead of hiding behind success and walls. Now I'm terrified, she admitted. Because what if we try again and nothing's changed? What if you go back to working 18-hour days and I go back to feeling invisible and we destroy each other all over again? Then we set boundaries. We communicate. We go to couples therapy. We schedule time together and actually keep it. Minho's voice was urgent. We do everything differently than before because we know what doesn't work. That's not how people work, Minho. You can't just flip a switch and become different. I know. It's a choice. Every day, it's a choice. He took a shaky breath. And I'm asking for the chance to prove I can choose you. Not next week. Not when it's convenient. But in the small moments. In the daily choices. In the 1,000 tiny ways that show someone they matter. Ji-woo's heart hammered in her chest. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was dangerous, that people didn't change, that she'd be a fool to believe him. But there was another voice, quieter but insistent, the voice that remembered how it felt to love him, to be loved by him in those rare moments when he was fully present. The voice that had never quite let go, no matter how hard she tried. I need time, she said finally. I need to think about this when you're not standing in front of me making me feel 17 again. Hope flickered across Minho's face. Take all the time you need. A day, a week, a year, I'll wait. You're supposed to be getting married in 3 months. The scandal. Let there be scandal. Let the board be upset. Let the shareholders question my judgment. His voice strengthened. I spent years prioritizing their opinions over my own happiness, over our happiness. I'm done with that. What if I say no? What if I decide I can't risk it? The question hung between them, and Ji-woo saw him really consider it, the possibility that he'd blown up his life for nothing. Then I respect your decision, Minho said quietly. And I spend the rest of my life becoming the kind of man who would have deserved you. Maybe I'll meet someone else eventually. Maybe I won't. But either way, I'll know I finally chose courage over comfort. That has to mean something. Ji-woo's hands trembled as she picked up the ring again, her design, the one about letting go and holding on simultaneously. This ring, she said softly. I designed it the night of our divorce. I was so angry and so sad and so confused about whether I was making the biggest mistake of my life. What were you thinking when you designed it? I was thinking that real love shouldn't feel like possession. That the right person lets you be yourself instead of making you into what they need. She traced the delicate setting with one finger. I was thinking that I'd rather be alone than be with someone who made me small. I made you small. You did. And I let you, which is my responsibility to own. She looked up at him. But I'm not that person anymore. I won't disappear into someone else's shadow ever again. So if we did this, if I even considered it, you need to understand that I won't be the woman you married. I won't smile through my loneliness or pretend I'm fine when I'm not or make myself convenient. Good. The word came out fierce. I don't want the woman I married. I want the woman standing in front of me right now. The one who built a business from nothing. Who found her voice. Who learned to take up space. Who's strong enough to walk away from things that hurt her. Even if it means walking away from you again. Especially then. Because that's what I should have learned the first time, that loving someone means wanting them to be whole, even if their wholeness doesn't include you. Ji-woo felt something shift in her chest, like a locked door opening. I can't promise anything. I'm not asking you to. I can't jump back into a relationship and pretend the last 3 years didn't happen. I wouldn't want you to. I need to see change. Real change. Not promises, but actions. Consistently. Over time. I understand. She took a deep breath. Then here's what I'm willing to offer, I'll have coffee with you. One coffee, one conversation, where we talk about what it would actually take to do this differently. No promises. No commitments. Just, honesty. Minho's face transformed, hope blooming like sunrise. When? Not tonight. Tonight I need to process this. Tonight I need to sit with the fact that my ex-husband just called off his engagement in my boutique and basically offered me his heart on a silver platter. That's fair. Sunday. 2 p.m. There's a cafe on the Han River that I love. Riverside Brew. Do you know it? I'll find it. And Minho? She met his eyes. Come alone. No assistance. No bodyguards. No phone calls. Just you. Just me, he agreed. I promise. He moved toward the door, then stopped. For a moment, Ji-woo thought he might try to kiss her, and she wasn't sure what she'd do if he did. But instead, he just looked at her like she was something precious he'd lost and found again. Thank you, he said softly. For not throwing me out. For listening. For giving me even a sliver of a chance. Don't thank me yet. I might still decide you're completely insane and this is a terrible idea. You might be right. He smiled, and it was the first real smile she'd seen from him all night, vulnerable and hopeful and terrified. But I think it might be the best terrible idea I've ever had. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving Ji-woo alone in her boutique with her racing heart and the ring she'd designed for lost love. She sank onto the bench where they'd sat together, her whole body shaking. What had she done? What had she agreed to? One coffee could turn into two, could turn into dinner, could turn into rebuilding something that had already broken once. But as she sat there in the dimness, holding the ring up to the light, Ji-woo felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. 6 months later, Ji-woo stood in front of her bathroom mirror, fastening the jade pendant her grandmother had left her. The woman looking back at her was different from the one who'd opened her boutique door to find Minho standing there. Her eyes were brighter. Her smile came easier. The permanent knot of tension in her shoulders had finally loosened. Are you almost ready? Minho called from the bedroom. Your sister will kill us if we're late to the rehearsal dinner. Ji-woo smiled at her reflection. 2 minutes. She'd learned, over the past 6 months, that second chances didn't look like fairy tales. They looked like work. They looked like Minho showing up to therapy every Tuesday evening, even when he was exhausted. They looked like difficult conversations about needs and boundaries and 1,000 small ways relationships either thrived or died. That first coffee had lasted 4 hours. They'd talked about everything, what had gone wrong, what they both needed, what it would actually take to build something different. Minho had listened more than he'd spoken, asking questions instead of making promises. What do you need from me? He'd asked. Presence. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts. Just you, showing up, consistently, even when it's boring or difficult. What else? Respect for my time and my work. Understanding that my business matters as much as yours. Equal partnership instead of me being an accessory to your life. He'd written it all down in a small notebook, like he was taking notes for the most important business deal of his life. Maybe he was. The next week, he'd done something that shocked everyone who knew him. He'd stepped back from his CEO role, moving to chairman of the board. He'd promoted his COO to run daily operations while he focused on strategy and vision. I can't be present if I'm working 18-hour days, he told her over dinner, dinner he'd cooked himself in his apartment, clumsy but sincere. And I can't ask you to trust me if I'm making the same choices that destroyed us before. It hadn't been perfect. There were moments when old patterns emerged, when he got lost in work, when she got defensive, when they both had to actively choose to communicate instead of shutting down. But they'd built something new, brick by brick, conversation by conversation. 3 months in, he'd asked her on a real date, not coffee or casual dinners, but a planned evening where he'd researched her favorite artist and gotten tickets to a gallery opening she'd mentioned wanting to see. He'd held her hand while they walked through the exhibit, asking her opinion on each piece, genuinely curious about her perspective. 4 months in, she'd invited him to her pottery class. He'd been terrible at it, his expensive suit getting covered in clay, but he'd laughed, really laughed, in a way she'd never seen during their marriage. They'd made wonky bowls together, and she still used hers every morning for coffee. 5 months in, he'd surprised her by suggesting they go to couples therapy even though they weren't officially together. I want to learn how to do this right, he'd said. Before we make any more commitments. I want to understand my patterns and yours, and I want to build something sustainable instead of just running on emotion. And slowly, carefully, they'd fallen in love again. Not the desperate, consuming love of their early 20s, but something deeper. More resilient. Built on choice instead of chemistry. Ji-woo. Min-ho appeared in the bathroom doorway, and her breath caught. He wore a simple navy suit, her favorite color on him, and he was holding something small and velvet. Her heart stuttered. I know we said we'd take this slow, he began, and she could see his hand trembling slightly. I know we agreed to wait before making any big decisions. But I couldn't go to your sister's wedding, couldn't watch her marry the person she loves, without asking you something. Min-ho. Let me finish. Please. He took a breath. 6 months ago, I walked into your boutique looking for an engagement ring for the wrong person. Tonight, I want to ask you if you'd consider wearing a ring designed for the right one. He opened the box, and Ji-woo gasped. It wasn't the ring she'd designed, the one about letting go. It was something new, something she'd never seen before. A delicate band with 2 intertwined vines, each supporting the other while maintaining their own shape, meeting at a small emerald, her grandmother's birthstone. I designed it, Min-ho said quietly. Or tried to. I worked with your assistant at the boutique, she was very patient with my terrible sketches. I wanted something that represented what we're building now. Not possession. Not one person overshadowing the other. But partnership. 2 people growing together while staying themselves. Tears blurred Ji-woo's vision. It's beautiful. The question isn't, will you marry me, he continued. Not yet. I know we're not ready for that. The question is, will you keep building this with me? Will you keep choosing me while I keep choosing you? Will you trust that I've learned, that I'm different, that I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right decision? Ji-woo looked at the ring, then at Min-ho, this man who'd broken her heart and then slowly, painfully, beautifully put it back together with his own scarred hands. Ask me the real question, she whispered. What? You know what question you want to ask. So ask it. Min-ho's eyes widened. Ji-woo, we agreed. I know what we agreed. But I also know that I've spent 6 months watching you show up. Watching you choose us over convenience. Watching you become the man I always knew you could be. She took the box from his hands, studying the ring. And I know that life is short and uncertain, and when you find something real, something worth fighting for, you don't wait for the perfect moment. You create it. Are you saying? I'm saying ask me properly, Park Min-ho. He dropped to one knee right there in the bathroom, and Ji-woo laughed through her tears. Lee Ji-woo, he said, his voice shaking. You're the strongest, most creative, most infuriating person I've ever known. You saved me from a life of hollow success. You taught me what it means to truly see another person. You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve, and you made me earn every moment of it. He took her left hand. I promise to choose you first. I promise to show up, consistently, in the small moments and the big ones. I promise to respect your dreams as much as my own, to make room for you in my life instead of expecting you to fit into the spaces between my ambition. I promise to keep growing, keep learning, keep working to be worthy of your love. Min-ho. Will you marry me? Again. Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that second chances can work, that people can change, that love is worth fighting for? Ji-woo pulled him to his feet, framing his face with her hands. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for this moment, for this version of them, for this second chance at forever. They kissed in that tiny bathroom, and it felt like coming home after a long journey. Like finding something precious you thought was lost. Like the ending and the beginning happening simultaneously. We should go, Ji-woo said eventually, resting her forehead against his. My sister really will kill us if we're late. Let her wait 5 more minutes. Min-ho pulled her closer. I've spent 3 years being too busy for the important moments. Tonight, you're the most important thing in the world, and everyone else can wait. Ji-woo's heart swelled. Who are you and what did you do with my workaholic ex-husband? I learned from a very wise woman that success means nothing if you're alone in it. That the only empire worth building is one made of moments like this. He kissed her forehead. I learned that green is your favorite color, that you hate thunderstorms, that you take pottery classes on Tuesdays. I learned to pay attention to the things that matter. I love you, Ji-woo whispered. I never stopped, even when I tried to. I love you too. And this time, I'm going to make sure you never doubt it. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends in the garden behind Ji-woo's boutique. She'd closed the store for the day, strung lights between the trees, and filled the space with green, her favorite color. She wore a simple dress she'd designed herself, cream-colored with delicate embroidery along the hem. Min-ho wore the navy suit from that night in the bathroom, because she'd told him she loved him in it. As they stood beneath an arch covered in jade vines, exchanging vows they'd written themselves, Ji-woo thought about the journey that had brought them here. The first marriage that had crumbled. The years apart. The chance encounter in her boutique that had changed everything. I promised to notice, Min-ho was saying, his eyes locked on hers. To ask about your day and actually listen. To remember that you like your coffee with cream and too much sugar. To celebrate your victories as loudly as my own. To choose you, every single day, in the big moments and especially in the small ones. I promise to speak up, Ji-woo replied. To ask for what I need instead of hoping you'll guess. To trust that you've changed while also trusting myself enough to walk away if that changes. To build a life with you instead of disappearing into yours. To be your partner, not your accessory. When they kissed, their friends cheered, and Ji-woo felt something settle into place, not perfection, but rightness. They weren't the same people who'd married young and naive. They were better. Stronger. More themselves. At the reception, Min-ho gave a speech that made everyone cry. 3 years ago, I lost the love of my life because I was too blind to see what I had. I built an empire but lived in poverty because I was alone. Tonight, I'm standing here as proof that second chances exist. That people can change if they're willing to do the work. That the best things in life aren't found in boardrooms or bank accounts, but in the person who sees you, really sees you, and chooses you anyway. He raised his glass. To Ji-woo, who saved me from myself. To second chances and new beginnings. To building something that lasts because we've learned how to protect it. Later, as they danced beneath the lights, Ji-woo leaned into Min-ho's chest and smiled. What are you thinking? He murmured. I'm thinking that you were right. About what? That night in the boutique. You said walking in there was the best terrible idea you'd ever had. She looked up at him. You were right. It was terrible and terrifying and the bravest thing either of us ever did. And now? Now we get to build the life we should have had the first time. Except better, because we know what we're fighting for. Minho twirled her gently, and she laughed, free and joyful and completely herself. As the night deepened and their friends danced around them, Jiwoo thought about the ring currently being admired by her sister, the intertwined vines, the emerald catching the light. A symbol not of possession but of partnership. Of two people growing together while remaining themselves. 6 months ago, her ex-husband had walked into her boutique looking for an engagement ring. Tonight, she'd married him again, and this time, they both understood what forever actually meant. Not perfection. Not ease. But choice. Every single day, choosing love. Choosing presence. Choosing each other. And that, Jiwoo thought as Minho spun her beneath the stars, was worth every risk. Worth the heartbreak and the healing. Worth the courage it took to try again. Because some things, some people, were worth fighting for. Even if it took losing them first to understand just how precious they were. Do you believe in second chances? Have you ever gotten a second chance at love, or wished you had? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else who's wondering if they should take that risk.